In this video, I've got the exceedingly difficult task of trying to convince you why I think keeping this is more sensible than keeping this. So bring it on. It is the battle between a 2002 Citroen Berlingo HDI and a Subaru Forester S-Turbo Automatic. What am I thinking? I'm also going to give you a bit of an update on the Subaru, starting with the £760 we spent on a timing belt change. So before we get into it, let's see how that job went. I had to farm it out for a couple of reasons. One, not entirely sure I could do the job without absolutely messing it up. And two, this car has not a perfect, but a very, very good service history for all of its 41,000 miles. And I felt it would be stupid to break that sequence. So I farmed the job out to Madeiron Havod up in Pontre de Grois, because I know Phil, who runs the place, is a bit of a Subaru nut. But he did phone me up and he said, "Why are you replacing this belt? Look how long it is, it's massive." He said, "This belt is in near perfect condition. Do you really want to replace it?" But of course the problem is, you've no idea how good a belt is, really. I'm just trying to find the markings. There we go. Still got the Subaru markings on it, but that belt is 22 years old. It was fitted in November 2002 when this car was just 3 years old. So although it doesn't look like it's going to fail, you just never know, do you? Maybe tensioners could have been an issue. There are many tensioners, but they all seem fairly healthy. I will say there was a bit of a belt noise, which I think has gone away, so maybe they weren't perfect. But that's that one. Then there's this one. Can you see why I didn't want to get involved in this job? And that one doesn't want to turn very much. Oh, and then just in case, there's this one as well. That seems very stiff indeed, to be honest. That doesn't want to go spinning. And then we got the water pump. So huge thanks to the lads for keeping all the bits. I mean, it's a bit crusty in there, but it's absolutely fine. So we're keeping all those bits, and we don't really know why, because everything has been replaced. So maybe we'll just chuck all those in the bin. It does seem a little wasteful. These parts have done 13,000 miles, which is nothing at all. The belt replacement, depending on where you look, is either 36 or 45,000 miles, and 3 years is the recommendation. But I think this is proof you can go a bit longer than 3 years. So there we go. That job was done, and while they were at it, fresh oil, filters, fuel filter, all that work has been done. So this free car has now cost us the best part of £800, but isn't that always the way? Despite really having nothing invested in this car at all, you want to do the right thing for the car, and clearly that was the right thing to do. Even though Phil is questioning my sanity and going, "Why would you spend all that money when it doesn't seem to be necessary?" But nonetheless, jobbed. So let's try and get into the comparison between these two vehicles. Obviously they're a world apart. This one has done 41,700 miles. This one has done over 191,000 miles. We've got petrol versus diesel, manual versus automatic. We've got suspension versus none, it seems. So there's a great deal of difference between the two. And to be honest, there's great appeal with both of them as well. The Berlingo offers the comfort and economy that you kind of want in a family car, but it's not as much fun and doesn't make as good a noise as the Subaru here. In terms of looks, again, very, very different. The Subaru, unmistakably Japanese. There's a lot I like about the styling. The fact it's almost got a smiley face on it at the front. I love the styling of these early Subarus, and when we saw a Forester at Rustival, a non-turbo, it just made me think, oh yeah, that is good. And I love the rear lights. They're just enormous. Look at them. They're huge. They don't need to be that huge. I'm glad they are, and they're a lot more visible than these rather unpleasant tiny little clusters on the Berlingo. It's got to the point I'm actually thinking, do I fit some extra lights to the thing? Because these are awful. The headlights are also absolutely awful. The ones on the Subaru do seem a fair bit better. Not that we've done a fat lot of night driving in the Subaru. Even got yellow fog lights. Ooh, fancy. Not my Peugeot Boxer. So in some ways, this is a terrible car. And then there is the windscreen wipers. I believe I entirely forgot a wiper demo when I purchased the car. So here we go. Look at that. Massive wiping area. It covers so much of the windscreen. There is just a tiny little triangle of doom at the top. They don't quite overlap as they should, but overall a very impressive wiping performance here in the Subaru. And while we're in here, other advantages, we've got air conditioning, which is nice. We've got this huge full length, or almost full length sunroof. It's massive, and it's just nice to have the light. And I found out what this does, by the way, the bright switch. If I put the side lights on, the clock goes dim, but if I press the bright button, the clock goes bright again. That's what it is. So if you're on a gloomy day and you've got your lights on, but you still want to see the time, there is a button to change the brightness of the clock. Brilliant. Also got headlamp washers. Both vehicles have headlamp leveling. Got a cassette player, but that speaker is absolutely shot. And we've got twin airbags in the Subaru, so that makes it a bit more safe. I've also got the lovely leather seats. I don't actually like leather. I hate leather seats, but at least they are heated. That could be nice for the winter. We've got more cup holders as well, because as well as this one, got one there which you can adjust the tension of quite nicely. There's actually one in here as well. There it is. You can swing that down, and then this cubby can be a cup holder, or it can just be a conventional cubby, whatever you fancy. That's quite nice. Automatic transmission has its benefits, especially if you're doing town driving. But yeah, it's a nice place to sit. I do like the interior. Look, I've got a power light and everything. But unfortunately, these seats rather firm, I find. I don't find them comfortable at all. After 300 miles in this car, I was in quite a lot of pain. Also, those head restraints are enormous and block most of your rear vision. That's less than ideal. Of course, another Subaru thing is the frameless doors. That's just cool. So when you do that, you've just got the bottom half of the door. I like that a great deal. Jumping aboard the Berlingo, not quite such an adventure, although we have got a door handle where the spring's broken, so sometimes it sticks out a bit. Got creaky door hinges. It's all a bit, I mean, it's colourful. That's nice, but these seats are actually quite comfortable, I find. Not everyone does. Not everyone gets on with a Berlingo driving position. It is very, very van-like. But if we jump in, we've got the green dials that I quite like, even though the green is falling off them. We've got our double stereo setup, this one just for show, that's the original. We've got this Bluetooth unit down here, but we've got no aircon, we've got no passenger airbag, it's just another cubby. And the M49 rather Berlingos are known to be quite unsafe. By the way, that's a really good mount. I'm very glad I bought that, not sponsored. Blanking plugs, ahoy! In this one, we just got nothing. Winding windows. The lack of central locking is an irritant. But on the flip side, the Subaru has an immobiliser that you have to disengage by locking and unlocking the car all the time. Very, very infuriating. But look, the rear head restraints can be folded down so they give an uninterrupted view out the back. Hello, Ellie. And generally, visibility in both cars, to be fair, is pretty good. Important business of the wiper test. Here we go. And got problems. I've got cheap wiper blades on, they're terrible. But we've got the triangle of doom. Even though we've got a shorter blade on the passenger side, we still get a triangle of doom and regular dribbles of disappointments. The wiper mechanism, you can hear it, is a bit tired with that sort of noise as the blade judders on the screen. But yeah, wipers are disappointing. And there's another feature. If you put them on intermittent mode, they actually, the gap changes depending on how fast you're going. I don't want that. An intermittent gap doesn't necessarily change based on your speed. It's infuriating. Yes, it's quite nice, but if you stop, the wipers will go into an intermittent, but it's quite a short interval. But if you're doing above 50 miles an hour, the gap is barely existent at all. So you end up taking it out of intermittent and using the mist function and pressing for a single wipe repeatedly. That is a major annoyance. Both cars very good for rear wiping performance. You can just see the outline of the Berlingos. You want to see those? Okay, yeah, we can do that. So this is the Berlingo's rear wash wipe. We've got the wash on the arm itself. Although I need to adjust that, don't I? That's appalling. That's mostly just going nowhere. But nonetheless, it wipes a huge amount of that sizable rear window. Now the Subaru is complicated because I've left it more than 15 seconds after unlocking it. So the immobiliser's kicked in, can't put the ignition on until you lock and then unlock the car. And sometimes it refuses to do so. So pop the key in. Unlike the Berlingo, there's a programmed wash wipe. The washer seems to be not working very well today. But a pretty decent wiping performance there. Not quite as good as the Berlingo, perhaps. But where the two really diverge is in terms of practicality. Yes, they are both estate cars, but they go about it in very different ways. And for a family car, I'm afraid this boot is not good enough. If we take the measurement up to the load cover, it's tiny. It's almost nothing. That is not a good performance. Whereas the Berlingo, helpfully being based on a van, has got an enormous boot. You know, I can crawl in it under the load cover. There's loads of space, even though I've got the spare wheel in here. And that is a good thing. Yes, an estate gives you the ability to go much higher, but generally I want my load under the cover so I can still see out the back. And this weekend we had Bella very heavily laden with all the merchandise and camping gear, and I could still see out. That is a major boon. I think if we'd taken the Subaru, we would really have been struggling for space. It's worth remembering the Forester is based on the Impreza, so its starting point isn't as a massive truck, basically. The Berlingo easily wins. Only downside, this tailgate is very, very long. So when I've got Bob, our folding camper, attached, I can't actually open the tailgate at all, and you have to be a bit careful about how close you are to buildings and the like. It also rattles because it's just such a massive panel. But to be honest, the Subaru does also rattle as well. But even in terms of load space, if we take a closer look, if I fold the cover back, which has a nasty habit of getting stuck, there we go. We've also got massive wheel arch intrusion because you've got effectively like a McPherson strut set up at the back. So that eats into the space as well. The car also came with all these spare parts and jacks and all sorts. So it just is not as practical as the mighty Berlingo. The Berlingo also benefits from sliding doors in the back, but of course because it's not central locking, I've left the key in, likes to bleep. Shush. Because we've got the sliding doors, that makes getting in and out that much easier when you're in a tight spot, and it just means you haven't got to worry about the kids actually accidentally taking out another car. I think they're a bit too old for such things, but we've got a seat that's split 60-40 or maybe even 70-30 looking at it, and the seats tumble down to the front. The only slight issue being that for me, I found the tumbled seats were pushing into the back of my seat when we were away recently. There's also more height than you'd ever need above your head, quite ridiculous amount. The rear of the Subaru, especially behind me, the kids often fight to not be behind me, is that much tighter. Although again, we've also got side airbags, which are denied in the Berlingo. But the seat otherwise, quite flat. Got these little trinket trays in the side pockets, and again, you got the frameless windows. But yeah, in terms of overall accommodation, the Subaru not so good. Now it's hard to imagine two more different engine bays really for a modern-ish family car. I mean, they're both about 20 odd years old, but whatever. This is a flat 4 turbocharged engine with a massive great intercooler on top. That is an upgraded intercooler. It's also got strut braces top and bottom. And in terms of working on the engine, I don't even know how you'd start getting at things like the spark plugs. It doesn't look a lot of fun, which is why I paid someone else to do it. Whereas when we move over to the Berlingo, yes, also turbocharged, but no intercooler on the 90 horsepower HDI engine. But much greater economy, of course. On a cruise, this can top 50 to the gallon. On a cruise, the Subaru will do more like 33, which we're actually quite impressed with. But hooning around locally, that drops to 25, whereas this drops to about 46. I think is the lowest I've ever got it without towing. But yeah, also not exactly easy to work on. Too much stuff down the back of the engine here where you can't easily get at it. But for daily transport, turbo diesel has to win. They both make interesting smells, by the way. Bella de Berlingo has got an exhaust leak, which means I can't open my window or fumes get drawn in. Whereas the Subaru, of course, has slightly leaky rocker gaskets leaking onto the exhaust. So you get that beautiful burnt oil smell. Yummers. Obviously in the Berlingo it sounds like a diesel because it is a diesel. Yeah, it's not really about that, but we're going to do an acceleration test nonetheless. Here we go. We get to 50. No, I've run out of road. Run out of road, can't actually get to 60. So acceleration is not a strong suit. No point revving the engine. We've had it on the dyno. We know there's not much power up there. In fact, she's 78 brake horsepower when she should be 90. Just going to have to watch the pedestrian here with the dogs. And now we can open her up and demonstrate the other aspect of the Berlingo, the one I like most. And it's the way on a road like this, which is quite undulating, and in a Fiat 500 electric, actually quite painful. The thing bounces around to a ridiculous degree. It's so smooth. And really, when you're doing long distance, it's about seat comfort, it's about ride comfort. And the Berlingo just delivers for me. And there's also the fact that because all the torque is low down, it's really quite relaxing. It'd be even more relaxing if the engine worked properly. Occasionally it can get a bit juddery. But yeah, it just drives well, it handles well. And well, it handles well when the tyre pressures are actually correct. Do check out my previous video. And it means you're generally not worried about it going around a bend, it just does. It's a wonderful era for Peugeot, the mix of ride and handling. It does both very, very well. So now we're in the Subaru, and as you can hear, things are a bit different. Oh, it's such a good noise. And I love the amount of light that comes in. I'd kind of gone off cars with sunroofs because they tend to leak and upset me, but this is different. And I have to say, I can feel excitement because I know I'm about to absolutely floor it in this car, and that is a very exciting thing to do. The Berlingo is not exciting in the slightest. It's just capable. It does the job, and it does the job very, very well. But here we go. I'm even going to put it in power mode. I don't think it makes any difference at all, actually. But we'll see. Into drive, aim at the horizon, and that's 60 already, and we're nowhere near the end of the road. But another benefit, big brake conversion. So, whoa, she stops. But out of power mode, we've had our silliness. It steers very well as well. I don't know if it's because of the strut bracing or just because that's what Subarus are like. It feels very firm and together. So here we go again. You have to wait for the power, it's quite laggy. And down this road that was plain sailing in the Berlingo, it just feels that much harder. You just get jarred. Oh, another car, blimey. you just get jarred that much more. It's uncomfortable. I thought this was going to be a really quiet road, apparently not today. It does sound magnificent. That is the noise, albeit not the transmission, of the World Rally Championship in the 1990s and the early 2000s, of McRae and Burns, and yeah, it's a very evocative sound. I like it very, very much indeed. But when you ease off and drive it more gently, the automatic transmission changes character completely. It wants to keep the revs quite low. Torque converter lockup seems to kick in really quite early, and I think that's what helped us to 33 mpg on a run. My old legacy 2-litre manual non-turbo could only dream of topping 30 mpg. So we're doing 1500 revs at the moment at 45 miles an hour. This is the busiest road in the world. What's going on? That does highlight another issue, that to enjoy this car you have to be a bit antisocial in it, and that's not very Hubner. I think because it's so relaxing when you're not in hoon mode, that makes the jarring ride all the more annoying. But you know, it's got leather seats. It feels like it should be a premium luxurious product, and the ride just takes that away. On the plus side, we've got 4-wheel drive and a limited slip rear diff, I believe. So traction off the line is just extraordinary, even if it's muddy or wet or snowy. It just hooks and goes. And I remember when I had a Subaru Impreza Sport, exactly the same thing, where you could launch off a wet roundabout and it'd just go. You know, I was at the weekend struggling for traction in the Berlingo at times. As a tow vehicle, I would not be struggling in this, I don't think. Yeah, that's a noise I'll miss. There is a fair bit of wind noise. We've got a sunroof, we've got frameless doors and quite big mirrors. But yeah, it's not a bad way to travel at all. But that's not a good enough reason to keep it. Even though I do actually like the feel of it. There's a lot I like about this car, but ultimately I think the Berlingo is better for daily transport. That might surprise almost the entire internet. There you go. I guess I'm putting comfort and economy ahead of out and out fun. But you know, the simple truth is 300 miles in this vehicle, I hardly noticed. 300 miles in this vehicle, and I definitely knew I'd done 300 miles. As much fun as this is, I'm just going to take comfort every time. It's all well and good having that little bit of fun, but a daily transport needs to be comfortable and something you want to get into, so you're pleased to get into, and that isn't always the case with this car, sadly. So thank you very much for watching. Don't forget you can head to the Hubnut store. You should be able to head to the Rustival store as well if you'd like some Rustival merchandise. So I'll try and put a link to that below. If I forget, it's rustival.co.uk. But yeah, huge thanks for watching, and we'll see you in another video. Farewell.